So what's all this meth for?
I think Moab is taking a big risk by employing this officer.
Earlier this month, prosecutors in Moab took the unusual step of telling a judge that a police officer illegally searched a suspect.
Bob, this is not the first time the officer has been scrutinized. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Nate Carlisle explains what the body camera video shows.
Can you come out here and talk to one of these other officers for a minute?
This is video of Moab police officer Steve Risenhoover questioning a man in December. Risenhoover was investigating a possible domestic assault. Notice the suspect's unzipped jacket. That will be important later. Risenhoover didn't like that the suspect was putting his hands in his pocket, so Risenhoover handcuffed him. But let's pause here and tell you a little bit about Officer Risenhoover. This isn't the first time he's been in the news. Back in 2017, news outlets published stories about misconduct allegations against Risenhoover. Most of those concerns were not sustained by investigators, but there was one interesting finding. This report by Vernal Police found Risenhoover owed the IRS more than $4 million, much of it tied to a heating and cooling business he operated before joining law enforcement. Risenhoover had told Moab's human resources staff that paying taxes was voluntary. He even instructed the city to stop taking taxes from his paycheck. He reached a settlement with the IRS. Court records show he paid the state of Utah thousands in back taxes, too. The Grand County attorney at the time, Andrew Fitzgerald, sent Moab's police chief a letter saying Risenhoover's tax debts and other concerns about his truthfulness compromised his veracity as a witness. Fitzgerald said he would no longer call Risenhoover to testify in court and advised the police chief that Risenhoover should not be in control of any evidence or be allowed to write affidavits.
And if you're a jury member, I think what the kind of officer you want is someone who tells the truth and abides by the high standards of law enforcement. This guy is not it.
Jess Nix is a Utah defense attorney with no connection to the Risenhoover cases.
I think Moab is taking a big risk by employing this officer.
Risenhoover was named the Small Police Department Officer of the Year by the Utah Chiefs of Police Association in 2019 and was Moab's lead officer in December 2020 when he arrived at the scene of that possible domestic disturbance.
There was nothing physical between you two? No wrestling, no pushing, no just yelling? And
Both the suspect and his girlfriend denied there had been any physical altercation.
And it's unzipped now. So what's all this meth for?
After placing the handcuffs on the suspect, Risenhoover searched him and found methamphetamine in an inside coat pocket. Nix sees problems.
Well, first of all, it was an illegal arrest. He hadn't done anything wrong at that point. The reason this search was illegal is because he just reached in and pulled out whatever the suspect had in his pocket. You can't just do that. You have to have probable cause or reasonable suspicion of a crime. And at that point, the officer did not have that.
As you find stuff, don't touch. I'll take pictures.
Okay.
And we're good.
Risenhoover then persuaded a judge to issue a warrant for Moab police to search the suspect's car and the bedroom where he was staying. Risenhoover did not find evidence of a domestic assault, but prosecutors charged the suspect with 4 drug counts, including a felony that carries up to 15 years in prison.
This cache, Jerry, it was next to the meth.
These are sworn affidavits Risenhoover wrote about what happened that day. When we compare what's written here to what's on the video, it just doesn't match up. In both the arrest booking report and the search warrant, Risenhoover writes, the suspect was, quote, reaching inside his now unzipped jacket to an inside pocket on his left side, end quote.
How's it going?
We were having an argument.
That seems to imply the suspect unzipped his jacket to hide evidence, but the video shows the jacket was unzipped when Risenhoover meets the man and remained that way through the encounter.
2.1 ounces.
One of the officers who responded to help Risenhoover was a Utah Highway Patrol trooper. Risenhoover wrote that the trooper located a butter knife the suspect tossed on the ground. Butter knives are sometimes used to heat and consume drugs. But the trooper's report makes no mention of finding a butter knife.
He was outside and he kept reaching into his jacket when I told him not to, and he finally unzipped his jacket while we were dealing with these females that came over trying to start a fight.
Risenhoover also wrote that he saw a baggie inside the suspect's interior jacket pocket. You can't see that from the video. While the officer's body camera doesn't necessarily capture everything that was in Risenhoover's vision, you can see here how it would have been difficult for anyone to spot something inside that jacket.
I don't think he could see that bag from the distance they were at.
Grand County Attorney Christina Sloan eventually agreed. Earlier this month, prosecutors dismissed the case and told the judge there were substantial discrepancies between the arresting officer's report and the video. The officer also illegally searched the defendant. Moab Police Chief Brett Edge declined to speak on camera, but said in an email to Fox 13 that Risenhoover's actions are under investigation. For now, Risenhoover is on full duty, the chief said.
I would love to cross-examine this officer. I would ask, officer, isn't it true that in previous cases there have been substantial discrepancies between your report and the body camera footage?
The man Risenhoover arrested back in December declined to speak with us too, but asked we obscure his face and not use his name, given the charges have been dismissed.
Now, you gotta start being honest with me?
In Salt Lake City, Nate Carlisle, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Attorney Nate Nelson represents Risenhoover. Nelson did issue a statement on Monday. He says, quote, as this is an open investigation in an early stage, it would be inappropriate to comment. However, we are aware the investigation has been turned over to the West Jordan Police Department, and we will be following up with them as necessary. Like all U.S. citizens, police officers are entitled to due process, and we intend to ensure all of the officers' rights are safeguarded here.